the devices.
And now, it's Coast Vue with Ricky Matthews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on SuperTalk 103.1 FM.
Welcome to Coast Vue, the show that celebrates every single day the people of coastal Mississippi, and really, as I often add, Mississippi for that matter. All these people who are working so hard to make coastal Mississippi and our state a great place to live, work, and play. Hey, listen, as we record this, we're recording this on Wednesday, so let me explain why. I learned that Drake Bassett, who's the president and CEO of Palmer Home, let me just go ahead and welcome him into the show and say good morning to Drake. How are you doing this morning, Drake?
Good morning. Great to talk to you, Ricky.
So if you're a regular listener of Super Talk, you know that the Palmer Home, we'll talk more about that in just a second if you forgot what that was, is a really important sort of organization that we have supported for a number of years here at Super Talk. But Drake is on the coast, and literally as we speak, he's in my studio, and Kyle is working from the studio today. And he wanted to go by and chat with the people there that have been supportive of the Palmer Home. He also has a mission that he's on. We'll talk a little bit more about that as well. But since he was there, it made a lot of sense for us to get together and tape this show now. But I should point out that as we're taping this on Wednesday, I've taken a look at a lot of the hurricane models. I've read what the Hurricane Center says about what could be forming in the Gulf, and so by the time this plays on Friday morning, we'll have a lot more clarity about that. So whether there's something to that or not, and let's hope there's not, but if there, whatever the situation is, it's just an amazing reminder for all of us to have our hurricane plan ready to roll at any time. That's the important message that we can convey now, not knowing at the time of this recording on Wednesday what the exact situation is going to be on Friday morning. I should also point out, Drake, that the recording of this show happened actually after I did the show with Ken Starr. Mm-hmm. Ken Starr has written a terrific book about religious liberty, and it's written so that anyone can read it. But I had an opportunity to chat with the two of you together, introduce the two of you. It was cool to have an opportunity to visit with him, wasn't it?
It really was. And as I had a chance to listen to his comments in your conversation, I was saying, yes, this is so important, because when you think about the protection that the Constitution gives to people of faith, all kinds of different faith, but to be able to act on that faith and to have their consciences protected allows us to do all the things that we do. And when push comes to shove, sometimes in these mix-ups or these conversations, between parties, you really need clarity. You need voices of clarity to remind us of how we're structured and why this works, why it is that the world continues to look to the United States to continue to give, to continue to share their abundant resources, but to help. And all of that is rooted in our spiritual heritage. And so we can go to different church buildings on Sunday. We can see things a little bit differently, but fundamentally we are united in that Constitution. And I thought Ken just did a brilliant job outlining the scope of his book, and motivates me to pick it up and read it. And I really appreciated the fact that his book is geared towards younger audiences in the sense that it's simple. We've got to keep things simple, and they're not that complicated, but the world tends to complicate things. So I'm so grateful that he's made this effort, and it was a real pleasure to meet him. Thank you.
Yeah, it was interesting to have him on, and we'll move on from this after this comment, but have him on at this moment because, of course, when I was thinking about Afghanistan and brought it up at the beginning of the show, I was doing it within the context of what a quagmire, what a difficult situation we find ourselves in, trying to exit there and account for everyone, et cetera. And of course, he certainly sees that as well. But of course, I should have realized that he would, of course, see it from the point of view of freedom of religion and how too many Christians and others are persecuted. And, if you don't believe a certain way now, you're not right. Safe. And right. So I should have seen that, but it's really actually a compelling time to remember. If you're not religious in America, that's cool. You have a right not to be. But if you are religious, You have a freedom of religion that was bestowed upon you by the Constitution, and what we mentioned, my kids and my grandkids and my daughter teaches at a Catholic school and go to Catholic school. You're a faith-based organization focused on foster care, but that's one of the benefits of being in America, isn't it?
Well, it really is, and nobody's claiming that any of us or any of our founding fathers were completely perfect. But what they did was revolutionary by introducing principles into a new land that allowed people to arrive with their own convictions, which is why we're so diverse to start with. And that foundation allows us to continue to grow and thrive. And what we see happening in Afghanistan is the desire on the part of one group to quash the interest of the other. And that is something we don't experience here. And yet, what Dr. Starr is reminding us is that if we're not careful, we're going to stumble our way into depriving ourselves of that very freedom. And it's that freedom that has empowered organizations like ours to serve here in the United States and thousands of other organizations to move forward in their faith to serve other people. And so it is timely and really critical for us to understand the value of that freedom and to protect it.
Well, the Afghanistan has been referred to. I mentioned it in my conversation with Stacey Pickering, the graveyard of empires. If you go back in its long history, you see there's just been war torn. The role that religion has played in that from the very beginning. But enough about that. It was really, as you pointed out, an honor to get the opportunity to meet Ken Starr. What a gentle thinker he is, and
yes.
It was everything that I expected him to be. So, what brings you to the Gulf Coast, Drake?
Well, we have so many different conversations with so many people across the state, and as you know, our radiothon this year was extremely successful, and I don't think it's you can never say too much how much we appreciate that spirit of giving, and it comes from all parts of the state. So we do try to make the rounds, if you want to call it that, and it's such a pleasure to meet in person with people who've listened to the show, who follow the work that we do, who find us on the website. I spoke with a gentleman last night who had served in Vietnam, and he told the story of his sergeant major who helped him, of course, when they were serving together. And he learned during that time that he grew up in a little quote unquote orphanage in Columbus, Mississippi. And so just last year, so he lives here on the coast, and that sergeant major passed away, and he wanted to honor him, and he found us, and he honored us with a gift. The network of relationships and the impact, the ripple effect of service goes so much deeper. That idea of paying things forward, you can impact so many people. So we were happy to get together with some folks these past couple of days and just be down here on the coast and give a big thank you to everybody who's behind us.
Yeah, for someone who may be listening to this and really didn't know much about Palmer Home and certainly really don't know what you mean when you say radiothon, tell us what that's all about.
Well, it's kind of unique in the sense that we're so blessed that SuperTalk has identified us as this charity that they want to get behind, but it's much more than that too. We're true partners, I think, in reaching out to vulnerable children, and every state has children that are suffering in different situations, different degrees of abuse or abandonment, neglect of different kinds. And so SuperTalk has made this their mission to partner with us. And the way that they help us is by hosting an entire day. And if you can imagine this, suspending political conversation and suspending, sports conversations and that sort of thing, to just say, let's take a day and let's dedicate that to conversations with some of our children, some of our staff, stories from the past, different people who've involved themselves in our mission. And so the SuperTalk Radiothon is a great way to learn. And so many people learn about Palmer Home and the fact that we've been around for over 125 years doing this kind of work. That's where they hear about it. And so we connect, and that's the way the mission goes forward. we're not sure what the timeline is entirely, but we think we're just getting started at 125 years.
And is that when you consider that length of time is really incredible, but the need is so there in so many different ways. When you think about the Radiothon, it's interesting because I'm sure you go into it. I'm certainly, this was certainly a thought I'm sure you had last year. Certainly, I bet it's a thought you had this year to say, gosh, with the pandemic and all the things that are on people's minds and their attentions getting, diverted in other places, how good can it be? Can we be the success we want it to be? Hey, why don't we do this? We're coming to the end of this segment. We're talking with Drake Bassett, who's the president and CEO of the Palmer Home. When we get back, we'll reflect 1 second more on the success of this year's Radiothon, and then we'll talk a little bit more about what are some of the challenges you're having these days. What is your desire as it relates to foster care, et cetera? We'll get into some of that. So we'll see you after this break.
Great.
Hey South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport or on allentoyota.com.
If Alexa's part of your life, you've got one more way to access SuperTalk. SuperTalk Mississippi is now available on Amazon Alexa devices. Once enabled, just say, Alexa, play SuperTalk Mississippi at any time and start listening. It's that easy. Just one more way to stay informed and connected with your state. Learn more at supertalk.fm/Alexa. SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi. Now available on Amazon Alexa devices.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else. SuperTalk Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world. We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visit.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. SuperTalk Mississippi. Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi and now on Amazon Alexa devices. This is Coast View with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. I have my friend Drake Bassett with us today. He's the president and CEO of the Palmer Home. When we went to break, we were talking about, when you go into a radiothon, especially this year with so much happening, people's attention shifted in different ways. But the power of radio in terms of touching people, it's very significant, isn't it, Drake?
Yeah, well, it really is. And, I know you've been in media for a number of years. My background was in some of that. And you realize that the power of radio works if your message is great, or if your music is great, or, what is it that's going to find interest? And so we're blessed to tap into the interest of the SuperTalk audience. But we believe that when they hear the message, we're talking to the great people of Mississippi and the surrounding area who fundamentally are interested in good things. How can we do good work? And so despite, a pandemic, despite so many things that pull at our mind share, and when we think, like you said, well, we're not quite sure how this is going to go, we hang in there throughout the day. These stories start to come in, these conversations. People are calling from so many different places because I think they want to make a statement. I think they want to participate. And that's how we see it. We just don't do this work alone. And so on Radiothon Day, so many people get to vote with their voice. They get to vote with their checkbook, and they get to say, you know what, we want to help children. And so as much as we're surprised, at the end of the day, we just have to stop and go, we're not surprised. These are just fantastic people across this state, and they made this happen. And so we broke a record this year. We went over 300 plus, and it just, it just humbles you. It makes you realize, hey, you present the opportunity and people will step up and do the right thing.
You know what's so cool? I can't help but think about Steve Davenport. And Steve owns, this, Drake, but just for the audience, 26 radio stations across the state. There are 12 stations that are part of the SuperTalk network. So 103.1 SuperTalk Gulf Coast is part of that. And then you have them extraordinarily strategically located throughout this state. So you can literally touch every corner of this state. But his vision was to build a better Mississippi. And so news and information, of course, is talk, of course. But when you have that sort of a footprint, the ability to touch so many people, you can send a positive message that's important to Mississippi. You can help nonprofits like Palmer Home. But, when you think about, in a day when a lot of radio ownership groups, this is true in all media these days, I might add, are moving to these like really mega companies like iHeart, for example, and moving away from local. When you think about his tenacity to keep entrenched on his goal to serve Mississippi, to be uniquely Mississippi, to be able to bring these listeners so that when you had the moment, and as you pointed out, people have a lot of attention on their mind. That was what you meant by mind share. But when you think about the attention, that how easy it is to get shifted to other things, that he can touch so many people. I say Steve Davenport with his vision, it makes a difference for something like Palmer Home, doesn't it?
Well, it does, because what that means is the children that we serve are going to benefit ultimately from the power of his focus. The power of focus is strong, and it's so easy for anybody on any project or any day of the week to get distracted. But if you're focused and you're willing to do what it takes to achieve something, which is what I think Steve's doing, got such a great organization, got great people, and they're all on the same page. And so you see all these things come together. You see the messaging consistent. And, Steve is a quiet giant. You have these conversations, and it's, what do we got to do to get there? It's not complicated with him because his focus is so clear. And so we all benefit from that. Yeah. The state benefits from that. And certainly the children who are benefiting by way of his focus to serve Palmer Home and anybody else that's out there doing good work.
Drake, when you think about, the thing about foster care, every community, no matter how small, every community has some need for foster care. And what do you think about when you think about your leadership, your team's leadership, Palmer Home's leadership as it relates to families here in coastal Mississippi?
Well, I think, especially with, we have been talking, of course, about these events. And apart from all the politics in Afghanistan and everything that's been so difficult, haven't we all been touched by some of these scenes where you see families just stretched to the limit, and you see them, in some cases, physically handing over their only children, their children, over a barbed wire, set of fencing, in the belief that if they do that, their child's going to be safe, their child's going to be better. And what an incredible moment. And what it does, it taps inside of us that sense that we believe that ultimately children should be safe. We can have our arguments and fistfights as adults, but the reality is nobody is going to agree that a child should be put to risk. And so I think when I think about foster care, I think about people in their hearts who say, help us understand how we can help. Because whether you're in Afghanistan or whether you're in some of the parts of Mississippi, there are children just as frightened, just as unsure, just as confused as some of what we see on TV this week. And I think it matching up that spirit of, I want to care, I want to help, we're going to change our life a little bit. We're going to learn a few things. We're going to be trained. We're going to partner with an organization that is fully committed to our engagement with this process. That's what I think about. I think about so many people who can take this on, and they're a special kind of people, but we want to help them do that. And we have opportunities for that all across the state. And people who are interested in learning more about foster care can reach out.
Drake, that was such a powerful image, actually, the one of that Afghanistan citizen handing their baby to that military personnel, at that fence. What an incredible image that is. But if you think about Palmer Home and what you do, I couldn't help but also think about the nurses I visited at the ICU at Ocean Springs Hospital and what I witnessed there. And it's so out of sight, out of mind for people. The need for foster care is out of sight, out of mind. The pain that's involved in that child's life is out of it's.
That's right.
It's hard to focus on. That's what I'm trying to say. It's hard to focus on these issues, what really is happening, because it's painful to focus on it. It's hard to focus on it. People would rather not know what's happening at the ICU, at the hospital, and they'd rather not think about the need for foster care because it's painful. There's nothing more painful than a child who's hurting.
That's right.
And your challenge is to get people to focus on it long enough so you can appeal to that part of them that says, dang it, how can I make a difference? And you see it every day. You see it, don't you? Every single day, people want to make a difference.
Well, just yesterday, I took an email, a couple of different emails where I get a summary of a situation and a summary of our efforts. And I see exactly what you're talking about, our team coming together to work with the guardian or to work with extended members of a family who are basically in crisis. And ultimately, the child has no real say in how this all came about. They have no real vote to how it's going to be different. They're just at the mercy of people who are willing to come around that child who, for whatever reason, is now exposed to some of the most difficult things in our society. They're exposed to physical abuse or neglect. Maybe they're hungry. Maybe they're not sure about where they're going to sleep tonight. And the list goes on of the things that, but ultimately you're rattling the insides of that child by the hour until somebody steps in and says, stop, we're here to help and we're going to change this script. And so whatever way people participate, that's why we try to create an organization that allows a lot of people to touch. If people want to become foster families, that's a huge commitment. It's a big commitment in their life, but it's mostly in the mind. To your point, it's basically saying, I want to serve. We've seen so many foster families be successful in adapting their life and all of a sudden their families transformed. They experience this. Is it easy all the time? No. Service is not easy. It's not easy for those nurses in those hospitals. It's not easy for our counselors in our case. It's not easy, but it's the right thing to do. And so everybody has to find their way to touch these organizations like ours to make an impact to that child whose life's being rattled by the hour. We can change that direction.
Wow, so powerful. It is so powerful. And if you don't have, again, as I talked about with Ken Starr, and I often talk about on this show, the 1,000 Points of Light, these organizations and volunteers and people who are willing to come in and fill the gaps. What gaps are more important than the gaps that exist involving our kids? Good Lord, how mercy. And we've talked about it before, and we're out of time now, but there are so many compelling stories. It's compelling stories of success, so many compelling stories of need to get kids out of a certain situation and into Palmer Home or whatever. I mean, they run the gamut. But anyway, if you want to get more information, I would really encourage you to go to thepalmerhome.org, the Palmer Home, or not the, but palmerhome.org, and you can learn more. But anyway, we're out of time. Drake, it's been a pleasure to chat with you and catch up, and enjoy your time on the coast.
I appreciate that, Ricky, so much, and thank you for your partnership with us. Always great to see you.
You bet. We'll see you after this break.
Feeling down? Here's your prescription for a daily dose of good news and positive vibes. Good Things with Rebecca Turner. Every afternoon, Rebecca highlights all the good things happening right here in the state you call home. Daily exposure to Good Things with Rebecca Turner may cause smiling, feelings of positivity, happiness, and even laughter. When you experience these symptoms, tell your friends to listen.
Okay.
Weekdays starting at 2 p.m. here on SuperTalk Mississippi, and now on Amazon Alexa devices.
Hey, South Mississippi, the future has arrived. It's 2021, and at J. Allen Toyota, we're here to serve you. Want to let you know that we have Allen's lifetime warranty on every new Toyota we sell. That also comes with Toyota Care. That's 2 years and 25,000 miles of complimentary maintenance. We have a great rental department. Our service department's ready to take care of your current vehicle. We're rolling out J. Allen certified pre-owned for 2021. You got to come to I-10 exit 38 right here in Gulfport. You're going to love what we have to offer. When you think Toyota, think Allen Toyota.
What decisions are being made by state lawmakers, and how will they affect you, your family, and community? If you listen, you'll know. SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk app, and at supertalk.fl.
Hi, I'm Billy Kinder, host of Big Billy Kinder Outdoors. Here the show Saturdays at 1, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi. Turkeys, whitetail, Grenada Lake crappie, or Gulfport redfish. We enjoy it all, especially when you're in camp with us on SuperTalk Mississippi.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking very hard-to-find PPE items to make our community a safer place. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. They were even sending thousands of dollars of PPE supplies free to local schools in need with help from other local business leaders. The next time your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider a local company that supports your ball teams, cheerleaders, and area homeless. Consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply, the local guys that keep your prices fair, your service and selection excellent, and your health our business. Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm. SuperTalk Mississippi.
From outer space, visitors from another world. We've had contact with bug-eyed monsters.
This is actually a flying saucer.
Flying saucer?
I'm from another planet.
Where late nights are kind of weird.
Well, they must have a reason for their visits.
The unexplained, the weird, and the downright creepy. Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. Late nights. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. Talking to Paul Thorne, Mississippi true treasure, really incredible recording artist, singer, songwriter, has been doing it a long time, doing it the right way.
It's almost like a Forrest Gump thing because, I was a boxer, / I worked in a furniture factory, / I had a gig 2 nights a week playing my acoustic guitar in a pizza restaurant, / I was in the National Guard. And,
Wow.
All this stuff was going on at the same time. / I had a writing contract with Rick Hall and Fame.
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show. Every day, we're driving the debate in America with the fastest moving, hardest hitting, most comprehensive, fact-based commentary on the radio. We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth. Our show is a meeting place of ideas. We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Weeknights at 9
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show
on Super Talk, Mississippi. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on Super Talk, Mississippi.
And now, it's Coast View with Ricky Matthews. Brought to you by J. Allen Toyota and AGJ Systems and Networks on Super Talk 103.1 FM.
Welcome back to Coast View. I really enjoyed that conversation with Drake Bassett. The work that he's doing around helping keep our kids safe is just literally incredible. And so now let's shift to my friend Jeff Duncan. It's Friday. It's right here on Fridays on Coast View, and we're going to talk about the Saints. And let me just say this one last time. We're recording this. It's really important to say this because of the tropical situations. We're recording this on Wednesday for Friday. It's when we can have access to Jeff. That's why we're doing it today. We're going to talk about the game last week and what to expect as far as training camp these days. But we don't know at this time. We know that there are some models that say that things could really get hot in the tropics by Friday. You're either watching a storm or thanking your lucky stars. Either way, it's a good reminder to be focused on hurricane preparation, et cetera. Can't say that enough. Stay tuned to Super Talk to get more information about that. So now let's shift my focus over to Jeff Duncan. And just morning, how are you, buddy?
Ricky, I'm doing great, man. 2 preseason games down. And as I told you before we got on air, I'm feeling optimistic about the Saints season. And I wouldn't have said that a few weeks ago.
You and I have talked a lot about the Jameis Winston situation and how Taysom Hill would do. And for the most part, they've not been a lot of separation, but boy, there was serious separation in that last game. So what's the latest over there?
Well, Sean Payton's keeping his cards close to the vest. As a matter of fact, he didn't even meet with the media on Tuesday after the game because I think he didn't want to have to answer questions about the quarterback situation. I think he knows right now his decision is going to be Jameis Winston, but he is always going to err on the side of caution as far as his game preparation. It's attention to detail, Ricky, and in his mind, announcing his starter before the Green Bay Packers game is a detail he doesn't need to give up. There's nothing to gain from it, even though I think everyone knows it's going to be Jameis Winston with the way he played on Monday night. That was a lights-out performance, 9 for 10. 2 touchdowns and 3 drives, and a 157 passer rating. It's almost perfect. And he knew everything was on the line there because Sean Payton had said early in the week that he probably wanted to make a decision after this game. So there's a lot of pressure on him, and I thought he rose to the occasion.
He did. I mean, just as a fan and, as someone who's watching games a lot closer because of our conversations, what I worried about from the past games is that trend that Kyle has talked about and we talked about last Friday, to hang on to the football too long. And once again, here you see Taysom holding on to the ball too long, and you did not see Jameis holding on to the ball too long. And it could have been something about the way the matchups and whatever. I don't know what's underneath all of that. But man, did he get rid of the ball? He was absolutely, unbelievably on the target. And then when you see the way that he's connecting with our new superstar Callaway, man, that's got to be something that the coach is saying, man, lick my chops, give me Michael Thomas back, give me Alvin Kamara and all the other tools they're not using currently. Whew, it could be a heck of a season if we could keep the team healthy, couldn't it?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I'm more optimistic than I've ever been. I mean, this is a very talented team, but it's kind of top heavy. They've got a lot of elite talent, and the depth is not as great as it's been in past years because of the offseason attrition with the salary cap maneuvering. So this team is going to have to stay healthy. That's always difficult in this league, but the defense is just flat out dominant. Now, they're going to be missing their best defensive lineman right now, David Onyemata. We know that for the first 6 weeks. They just had bad luck this week losing Jalen Dalton, who was starting in place of David Onyemata. So those are blows. I mean, he's out for the season. Dalton, he was a big 6'6", rangy athlete in there. But I think they're so strong in that front seven, Ricky, that the quarterback is not going to have to carry the team the way, say, Drew Brees did during his heyday with the Saints. The quarterback here just needs to be a game manager, make critical plays in key situations, and just not mess up, because this team's talented enough, as we've seen the last 2 years, to win games without just stellar quarterback play. They just have to not really put this team in negative situations. And I like what I'm seeing so far from Jameis Winston. But I would say one word of caution. I mean, Jameis Winston has had games like that before in Tampa. I mean, he's had the brilliant performances. I mean, he was the #1 pick in the draft for a reason. He's got elite talent, especially with his arm, but it's the inconsistency you worry about. So I caution everybody, while it's easy to get excited, he had a lot of those big games like that in Tampa and then couldn't sustain it. So I'm a little more cautious about ordaining him right away as the savior, just because I know his track record.
Well, as you and I've talked about before, and you wrote it in your book about Peyton and Breeze, that you have to have a PhD in offense to play in this game. And the good news is he didn't just join the team. He's been waiting in the wings, learning, sort of recalibrating the entire decision matrix that he may have used before. It's changed dramatically under Sean Payton. And, the mental game and the progressions and all these things that you've taught us about that are important to this game, he's had a chance to do that. So hopefully, we can break one and get some points on the board. But as a general rule, just play relatively conservatively. Don't make big mistakes. Let your stars do the most of the work, like Alvin Kamara and others. And John Ray, who is with Gulf Coast Furniture and Supply Company, he and I and Jeff had a chance to visit during one of the breaks a second ago, and John asked a question about Michael Thomas, and you said something I hadn't heard before, that he might be coming back sooner than we expected. What's the latest on Michael Thomas?
Well, there's just optimism with how far along in his recovery. I mean, there could always be a setback and push it back, but right now he's ahead of schedule, and all signs are encouraging for him to come back. What will probably happen with him, what will happen with him, is they will put him on the active roster at the end of camp, when next week they have to get down to 53-man limit. And then after a waiver period is over, they will place him on injured reserve. Same thing's going to happen with Will Lutz, the kicker. They have to be on the 53-man roster. But then once they put on injured reserve, they don't have to sit out 6 weeks like they've had in the past. Because of COVID, the league has implemented new rules that allow players to come back whenever they're ready. So that's a good sign. They don't have to rush him back, and they don't have to lose him for 6 weeks. He can come back on his own timetable.
That seems like a good rule, incidentally, independent of COVID. So maybe they'll keep that as a permanent piece of the overall action. It is going to be interesting to see how this team does. My son Jordan has been critical. He likes Michael Thomas, but he's been critical of him as a growing prima donna on the team. And I think there's this perception about him. You and I talked about that in great detail. You know, did he get his money and start to act a different way? You said, you know, you pointed out and corrected that to say one of his best years happened after he got his money. But whatever's happening with him, there's been a lot of effort to try to fix that, hasn't there?
Well, there's been a lot of communication between him and the organization. You know, he's rehabbing in Philadelphia with the specialist that performed the surgery on his ankle, and that's a very tricky injury, those high ankle sprains. But he is a diligent worker. I mean, nobody will criticize Michael Thomas for his professionalism and the way he goes about his business, and that's why he's ahead of schedule right now. But you have to be encouraged by the way these young receivers have stepped up with him out. And this is something the Saints said internally. They kept saying, hey, we feel good about our young receivers. I think everybody on the outside was skeptical, and we're starting to see why they were confident with the way Lil Jordan Humphrey and Jawan Johnson has moved to tight end now, and he's a threat at tight end, and we know Deontay Harris can make plays, and then Marquez Callaway, he looks like a number one receiver right now. Can he do it when the lights come on in the regular season? We're going to find out, but he certainly looks the part of a number one receiver.
What happened to Kevin White?
Well, he obviously had a couple drops. He didn't have his best game. This is a guy that I don't think they're counting on, but they'd love to have him in the lineup in the receiving core because he brings something to deep speed that they really kind of lack right now. So we'll see. I mean, they're not going to give up on him after one performance. They've seen enough in practice to know that he does have the athleticism on the perimeter that they really lack. So we'll see. He's going to have a better game. Obviously, this week he's going to play a lot against Arizona on Saturday.
You know, what's interesting about him, because we're just getting to know him, obviously. I didn't know much about him until we started reading about him, but he has a physical presence about him. When he lines up on the line, man, I can see why they like him. And you know, he didn't become such a high draft pick and do as well as he did early in his career, aside from the injuries, not being able to catch the ball.
Well, he was the number 7 overall pick in the draft. So there's a reason for that. And the Saints have done this in the past. I mean, that's what Jameis Winston is. You know, that's what Kevin White is. You draft talent. You bring in talent. Somebody saw enough in Kevin White to make him the 7th pick in the draft. Saints feel like get him in this building. Maybe he can project to be a part of their depth chart. We'll see. He's got to perform. As Sean Payton always says, I've got to see it. So he's going to perform on Saturday against the Cardinals.
When we come back, we're going to talk more about this sort of positive air that we see around the Saints these days. We'll talk a little bit more about the defense, man. It's really impressive what we saw last week. We'll see you after this break.
SuperTalk.fm has a new look and is more informative than ever with expanded Mississippi news coverage, the latest Mississippi weather, Mississippi sports, and of course, the talk that's important to you. Every show, every podcast, and every late-breaking story. Constantly updating the news the second new developments happen. All in one place. The new SuperTalk.fm.
Hey, South Mississippi, it's Jay Allen at Jay Allen Toyota, and I got something new for you for 2021. It's the Jay Allen Certified Collection. What that means is we selected our very best inventory with under 75,000 miles, and they're 6 years old or newer. That comes with a multi-point inspection, a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, and a 3-day buyback guarantee. So come check out the Jay Allen Certified Pre-Owned Collection right here, I-10 exit 38 in Gulfport, or on allentoyota.com.
When COVID started, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply began stocking hard-to-find PPE items. When Amazon and other mega internet companies were out of stock or inflating prices, Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply was providing local schools and businesses vital PPE supplies at fair prices. When your office needs PPE supplies, office furniture, or products to keep your business operating, consider Gulf Coast Business Furniture and Supply. We sell that too. Buy local.
SuperTalk Mississippi, your new home for the Ben Shapiro Show.
We don't hold back. We never shy away from telling you the truth.
The most electrifying national talk show on air today.
We have the most important guests and the biggest thinkers in America.
Ben Shapiro, brutally breaking down the issues of the day.
From politics to pop culture, we take a look at all of it. So don't miss out.
Weeknights at 9.
For something new and unique in talk radio, take a listen to The Ben Shapiro Show.
On SuperTalk Mississippi. SuperTalk Mississippi.
Just seems to me people have so much invested in not telling the truth.
When you want the truth.
Simply because it might hurt some feelings.
And nothing but the truth.
Lose some subscribers.
You want the Gallo Radio Show.
I just think in this audience, you still believe that if you tell the truth, you come out ahead.
The Gallo Radio Show.
And if you tell yourself otherwise, you're lying to yourself.
Mornings on SuperTalk Mississippi. Thousands of Bulldog fans have subscribed to the Thunder and Lightning podcast. Have you? On each episode, Brian Haydad and Joel Coleman give you an inside look at your Mississippi State Bulldogs. The Thunder and Lightning podcast is free and available on demand at supertalk.fm and on your smartphone. Just search for Thunder and Lightning on iTunes, Google Play, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thunder and Lightning from SuperTalk Mississippi, covering the Bulldogs like no one else.
Hey, I'm Steve Azar, and you never know who or what you'll hear when I spend a Mississippi Minute with my friends. We're talking to Dale Berra. Take me back to growing up and what it was like in the household with a dad like Yogi Berra.
You know, we grew up with his funny sayings. You know, I remember Dad managing the Mets, and me, Larry, and Timmy are watching the game on TV. And all of a sudden, two streakers run out of the stands on TV, and the camera slips away from them. So when he gets home, me, Larry, and Timmy say, "Hey, Dad, those streakers, what were they, boys or girls? We need to know." And Dad looked us right in the eye and said, "I couldn't tell. They had bags over their heads."
In a Mississippi Minute. Be sure to check out In a Mississippi Minute with me, Steve Azar, right here on SuperTalk Mississippi, the SuperTalk Mississippi app, and now available on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Talking to the people that help make the coast such a unique place to live. This is Coast Vue with Ricky Matthews on SuperTalk Mississippi Gulf Coast 103.1.
Welcome back to Coast Vue. I have my friend, dear friend from NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune, Jeff Duncan, covered the Saints longer than anyone else. And he really has some great connections. He's got a good eye for what's wrong and a good eye for what's right. He's really good at that. So anyway, hey, one of the things that really, I know you mentioned during the break, and we'll acknowledge this, that Jacksonville, you really can't say Saints are going to beat every team with their defense based on their performance against Jacksonville. I get it completely. But, you know, the defensive backs were a big question mark coming into this season. And you've seen in both of the games so far, you've seen some pretty good play from the defensive back. So what's your current read on that situation?
Well, I think there's still a need of another cornerback, and I know they'd like to address that position. King Crawley right now is going to start opposite Marshawn Lattimore, assuming Lattimore is going to be available. Nothing yet from the NFL on his potential discipline, so that's probably a good sign as far as him starting the season in the starting lineup. King Crawley's played well this camp, Ricky, but you know, we've seen him before. He tends to lose his confidence very quickly if he gets picked on, and he is going to get picked on, rest assured, in the regular season if he's starting opposite Marshawn Lattimore. We're going to find out a lot about if this is real or an illusion, what we're seeing from Crawley. And I know the Saints would still like to bring in another veteran anyway, if they can. And if they can't orchestrate a trade, then I expect them to be very, very active in the waiver wire once the cuts are made after this third preseason game.
If you're a Saints fan and you really want to know what's happening with the Saints, you cannot beat NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. The team that they've amassed there is just incredible. Sign up for the Saints letter. I put this in one of the posts that I did, but sign up for the NOLA.com Times-Picayune Saints letter. You'll get it every morning in your inbox. It gives you kind of a lot of context about the stories that have been written, and then it gives you links back to the stories. I highly encourage it. I mean, it is a big-time tool for me to be able to use. And one of the stories that was written, I think Luke Johnson wrote it, was about Ken Crawley and his confidence level and, you know, how that waned. But you know what was interesting, and you saw the post about that, but what was so good about the story, it's just well written. I mean, your team, you're surrounded by really good writers that have good eyes for things. And it's not just, you know, looking at the stats and what do they tell you? It's looking at sort of the psyche and the deeper story behind each player. And I thought the way that he wrote about Crawley in particular was just a really good story. And it gives you a sense that he's got the talent. If that swagger can stay there, he's got a great opportunity to really be a major contributor to this team at a time when we really need him.
Yeah, and look, going back to your earlier point, Ricky, that Saints newsletter, I agree with you. I mean, it's a great way to follow the team because it comes to you. It comes in your inbox, got all these stories linked just for you. So it's kind of an easy way to follow the team. And I highly encourage people that are Saints fans to sign up for that newsletter. But getting back to Crawley, yeah, I'm encouraged by what I see. I'm just still a little skeptical because I've seen him during the regular season, and I know what kind of pressure he's going to be under because I know opponents are going to come after him. And then behind him, you've got a rookie, Paulson Adebo, who has also played very well, and he looks the part. But it's just a whole different level of play once teams start game planning for you, once teams start targeting you. What we're seeing right now is kind of a dress rehearsal, very vanilla. So I just caution everyone, what we're seeing sometimes doesn't translate over to the regular season.
So you mentioned a defensive lineman going down for the season, I might add. And, of course, when Troutman went down and he gets carted off, you think, oh, my gosh. So what's the latest on him?
Well, Troutman, I think, is going to be okay. I've heard here in like maybe 3 weeks. That's early prognosis, so that's a good sign. They really need him to be healthy. I mean, he's a big part of their offense. And Jalen Dalton, unfortunately, is out for the season. He tore his triceps in his arm. He'd had a partial tear. Now it's completely torn. And that's really disappointing because he was going to be the replacement for David Onyemata, and he was really coming on. I mean, a 6'6", massive human being in the middle of the defense who also is very athletic. And that defensive line is just – I can't believe how good they are. They might be the best line they've had since I've covered the team, and that's saying a lot. I covered back when Leroy Glover and Norman Hand and Joe Johnson were there, but this unit's lights out. I mean, Jacksonville, Ricky – they just stopped trying to run the ball. They could not run and gain a yard, so they just started passing. They threw 58 passes in the game because they couldn't run the ball. And I think that's going to be a very common refrain against these Saints. You can't run on their front seven, but they're vulnerable in the secondary, so people are going to test them in the secondary, and that's why I think cornerback remains a concern.
Okay, so if Jameis is named the starter, is it your thought that Simeon would be moved into that second role, that backup role, and that they would put Taysom back into that Swiss Army knife role? What's the thinking on that?
Well, I mean, Sean Payton's not saying. I mean, he's not talking about the quarterbacks at all. I'm guessing that's what would happen, but Simeon has not had a good camp. I'm not sure what the confidence level is in him right now being the backup. I wouldn't be surprised if they rolled the dice with the young rookie, Ian Book, because he's clearly better right now than Trevor Simeon.
He's kind of small, actually. Kind of reminds me of Drew Brees, but you see him on the sideline. He seems so darn confident. People seem drawn to him. And, man, as we've reviewed before, his numbers coming out of college are unbelievable. So, anyway, we'll talk more about him in the future, and it'll be interesting to watch what happens over the next few days. And as usual, Jeff Duncan, you are the best. Thank you so much for giving us access to you and sharing your incredible knowledge with the people of coastal Mississippi. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Ricky. We'll talk again next week after the third playoff game. Be a preseason game. Be a lot to talk about.